Crafting a winning B2B influencer strategy is like building a skyscraper, and today's insights lay the foundation and provide the blueprint for success. Set your brand apart and start fostering winning influencer relationships now. As Bianca Ker, who's a Senior Director of Customer Success for Influencer Marketing at Sprout Social, she brings a fresh perspective on how B2B brands connect with their audiences. She shares her strategies and insights for creating authentic content and fostering strategic partnerships that drive measurable results. And coming up on today's episode, B2B strategic implementation, influencer marketing best practices, influencer marketing frameworks, influencer relationships and dynamics. Bianca, I'm really excited to discuss how we can start building influencer relationships. But first, what insights can you share into influencer marketing strategies within the B2B SaaS context?
First things first, even if we're going to start up way upstream, and whether it's B2C or B2B, I think it's important for brands and agencies to enter the discussion around a campaign, not assuming they know exactly the profile of the influencer that's going to resonate with their audience, or resonate with your buyers, or that the influencer with the biggest following is going to somehow translate into engagement and conversions. Really, I think it's so important to go further upstream and take the time to do the research and investigate what's driving engagement in the online conversation across each platform. And then to ultimately create a multi-dimensional budget for those different types of influencers. And again, I will constantly keep saying it, but approach it like any other paid media campaign. If you're working on awareness, then prioritize impressions and reach. If you're driving to a landing page, then let's make sure that engagement is high for the creators that you're working with, not just on organic posts, but also on historical sponsored posts that they've done before. And then also, I think this is something that gets overlooked too often, but work with creators that authentically represent your brand. So too often, brand deals get done where a high profile creator is chosen, but really given a strict script and a ton of non-negotiables. And it just rings inauthentic with their audience, and then you see the performance be quite a flop. And I think when you're investing in this space, you really have to do the research to understand, okay, maybe this influencer's organic content performs incredibly high, but their sponsored content, there's a disconnect happening. Their audience doesn't like it when they post sponsored content, or their audience doesn't like it where they post sponsored content that feels really out of left field, like they're a food influencer and they're posting about, their phone plan and how great it is. There really needs to be that connection. And that is what's different. That's a huge piece of differentiation in this space, is that level of connection that's needed.
I really, really like that. But could you expand on B2B influencer marketing, especially around measuring success and the impact on credibility?
One, and I'll even take a little bit of a step back here, I think one of the pitfalls that B2B companies or agencies representing B2B companies see is they're still seeing influencer through the lens of the bikini model, schlepping skinny tea. And the space has evolved so much from there. And where I instead see the angle for the B2B brand and agency is really through the KOL, which is just another term, but the key opinion leader. And often that term is used more in the Asia Pacific region for creators. But when we're thinking about pharmaceutical companies or technology companies, what they're really looking for is they're not looking for somebody with the largest following that exists who's just a generalist. They're looking for doctors or researchers or entrepreneurs or people who have a voice within that particular space. And so some of the use cases that we see is perhaps I'm a pharmaceutical company and I don't know, maybe I represent a vaccine and I want to understand key opinion leaders who are really swaying the conversation when it comes to vaccine hesitancy or when it comes to anti-vaccine sentiment. And I want to understand, not just the social listening, which is something that Sprout Social is able to deliver, but really the creator listening, which is what Tagger focuses on, and a big part of, the Tagger acquisition by Sprout Social. So it's not just what are people online on these different platforms saying, what are people who have a larger presence and a bigger impact saying? What are these doctors saying? What are these activists saying? How can we really communicate better with our audience so that we're making the impression that we want to make? Where are we seeing engagement? Where are we seeing the reach happen? So within that B2B space, we see that a lot. If you're looking at perhaps a technology platform, maybe you're attending a conference and you want to come up with a sales and marketing strategy. Prior to the lead up to that conference, you can start tracking against hashtags and keywords to understand what's driving the conversation around topics that are focused on the conference. What are people who are speaking at that conference? What are trends and things that they're focusing on leading up to that conference? That's going to help you strategize, hey, how are we going to represent ourselves at that conference? What are we going to do? Are we sponsoring an event at that conference? How can we promote it effectively? Should we maybe have one of the speakers who are seeing the most traction leading up there? Should we maybe have them attend our event and be like a keynote at our particular event that we're hosting outside at some restaurant or some event space? So there's ways that, influencer marketing, particularly in the B2B space, can be used in a, maybe non-traditional approach from a research perspective and a sales and marketing perspective behind the scenes that may not necessarily translate to the traditional campaign management. Now, that, of course, can be applied and should be applied in the right places, but there's so much opportunity to think outside the box of how creator listening and creator engagement on these different platforms, be it TikTok, be it Instagram, or more so, honestly, for the KOLs, it's really on X, formerly known as Twitter, where you're seeing a lot of this conversation happen for the KOLs, those entrepreneurs, those doctors, those activists, those journalists.
Okay, then what would you recommend for B2B or, say, companies focused on sales wanting to start engaging in influencer marketing? What should they be doing? What are the best practices and frameworks that they should be considering?
Yeah, I think, again, it's always going to come down to what are your goals? And starting there, who is your audience? What is it that you're working towards? And I say this so many times that it sounds, when you say something over and over again, it stops, you feel like sometimes it stops losing its oomph, but it continues to ring true for me. And it's that we need, across the board, when investing in influencer, to see it as a legitimate and important segment of your paid media strategy. And that means that, the spray and pray approach that, say, a beauty brand is applying of just sending out a bunch of lipsticks to, 1,000 creators, that may work for that beauty brand from a reach and impressions perspective, just to get some awareness out that they have a new product line and they just want it in the hands of a bunch of creators who may or may not post about it. That's really not, you can't send, what are you going to send? A bunch of vaccines out to a tribe of, or a bunch of, software keys, I guess. You can be influenced, you can be inspired, by some of the successes on that B2C space, but you have to have a really keen strategy and approach to what is your goal, what is the metric that you're driving to, and who are going to represent that goal and that metric most effectively. Have they done it before? When they have posted sponsored content, what has that sponsored content looked like? How much has it been engaged with? Has it driven the metrics that you are finding important for this particular goal? Is this, and again, follower count is such a small part of the equation when it comes to the overall outcome of a particular campaign, especially as this, as this market develops. And then the other piece is putting boosting dollars against it. Kind of gone are the days of being, I think you're a little naive if you think that if you're just holding out hope that your sponsored piece of content is going to go viral, unless you have Ryan Reynolds in it. It's really unlikely that you're going to have the kind of traction that you're going to get without putting paid media dollars and boosting that content across. And so again, it comes down to the investment on the research. If you're really thinking of a rubric, going further upstream and taking out all of your assumptions about who your audience is going to engage with, applying similar strategies and having multidimensional budgets where you're going, maybe I want to have a combination and I'm going to apply, the same funnel that I might do to any kind of marketing strategy. Top of funnel, I'm going to focus on reach, and I'm going to maybe look at impressions and weight follower count, weight that impressions data higher. And then further downstream, I'm going to go maybe with more of those niche influencers. I'm going to look at their engagement rate. I'm going to look at, are they commenting? Are they communicating with those in their comments and actually following up with questions with their community? Are they really creating a community within their following? That's where I'm going to drive a lot of those, engagements, click to landing page. That's where that authenticity is going to come into play a lot more. And then as a follow-up, putting money behind it, getting it in front of the eyeballs that you want, and then tracking, not spending all of your money on the boosting at the very beginning of the campaign. Have an evergreen approach where you're tracking the performance over time. How are things performing? And then putting more money behind the ones that are really being effective so that you can get the results you're looking for. It's not plug and play. It's not easy. And I think if you go into it with that mindset that you're going to have an effective strategy and you're going to put the resources against it, it can have an outsized impact, truly a level of impact that can't be seen in many other platforms.
As we wrap up today, I'm interested in your thoughts on fostering and maintaining influencer relationships.
So, it's such a question that comes up often, especially when we have customers who are maybe newer to the space and they are sending out, hundreds of emails to creators trying to get them to represent their brand, and they're not receiving responses, or they're not, if they're getting responses, the level of interest is not very high. And then, when you dig in, you find out that the offer that the brand is making to this wide array of hundreds of creators is, hey, can you give us, 3 pieces of content across TikTok and Instagram, and we're willing to send you a yoga mat. Those aren't necessarily the majority of the conversations, but we do see this level of frustration with folks who are newer to the space, and they enter the space having a misconception of the level of interest from creators when it just comes to, say, free product. And, they're gonna want to jump at our free product and they're going to want to create this piece of content. And, I think there's, again, a lack of understanding of what goes into creating that content. And if you want a piece of really quality content and time put into it, Or if you're just looking for someone with, who's going to throw something up that's inauthentic and it's going to be like, look at these blinds, or, hey, look at this yoga mat that I used at yoga. So I think, to kind of, there's got to be this level of mutual respect that what you're asking for from this creator is their time, but beyond their time, you're asking for access to their community and a respect and an understanding of the level of work and risk that the creator puts in every time they post a sponsored piece of content. And that even if they have a small community, they've worked really hard to create that and they don't want to put that at risk. And so I think that's where, all brands really need to start from, is these are human beings. These aren't just kind of like pieces on a puzzle in their overall spreadsheet of the numbers and impressions that they want to reach or the conversions that they want to reach. They're human beings who, for a lot of them, this is not fully paying the bills yet. And they're hoping it will, but they are a small business and you are asking for access to their small business and their services. And if you're not willing to pay them, that can be really challenging. Now, again, spray and pray campaigns can be super effective for some verticals. But when you're communicating with those creators, I think starting from that understanding, these are human beings that work really hard to create this content. And I've got to meet them where they are and have that understanding of the level of work and time and risk that goes into all those pieces of content that they create.
With today's blueprint, you're ready to construct a winning B2B influencer marketing strategy. Head over to Bianca's LinkedIn profile to stay up to date with what she's thinking and talking about. And if you're ready to take your marketing efforts to the next level, watch our previous powerful interview with James Bridgman, who's the former head of global marketing for Pollinate, who shares some amazing insights into building trust in your brand. Until next time, from me, Ross Webb, bye for now.